You love Parham.
He loves
You love that
touchdowns. He loves touchdowns.
And that is true.
He has a Mark Bo Richter reception to touchdown rate.
Where did you pull that one from?
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Week 8 rankings by position. If you need the rankings list, they are easy to find. They are in the description or comment section of this video or podcast. Or if you just want to use the Googles, go to DraftKings Network, Pat Mayo. Boom, you can find them up there as well. Additionally, smash the like, rate and review the show on Apple and Spotify, and sub to Mayo Media Network. If for whatever reason you missed out on the Restart Survivor League that started this week, you still technically have a chance to be in the running to play for the top prize of $5,000. Now, it is completely free to play. You can find that down in the description or at leaguesafe.com/PME, but you can only play the Monday Night Football game from here on out because that is the only game remaining in Week 7. Jake? You were just telling me about Najee Harris getting that dreaded over by just a little bit. That always sucks. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, 1.5 yards. I'm the king of this. Meanie knows this. I send in my snapshots of like 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 6 on any of these sites, DraftKings, Prize Picks, whatever, all of them. And it's just, I always miss the one. And of course, this week was Najee Harris by 1.5. Last week it was Trevor Lawrence when he got hurt in the fourth quarter. And then I think what was the one before that? It was something the week before that. It was 1.5 yards again. Pacheco. It was Pacheco the week before. So like I just keep missing by 2 yards. 2 yards. We need a nickname, 2-yard Jake or something. I don't know.
Well, hopefully 2-yard Jake. You can find some ones that are a little bit easier this time around. It means you're close. You're that close. It's going to happen for you.
And one of these days. Or I could just stick to. I retweeted your Survivor thing. Maybe I just stick to that.
Did you advance?
I picked the Seahawks. I didn't want to because I felt like, man, if everybody can just pick the Seahawks and get knocked out and you pick somebody else and survive, but man, there was a lot that I'm glad I didn't pick.
You could have went with Buffalo. That would have been bad.
I know. I'm actually glad they were off my... So in yours, I would actually take the 49ers if you're still remaining tonight. I don't see how they lose that if Christian McCaffrey's healthy. But yeah, the one that I've been starting since the beginning of the buy-in that I have with a bunch of people that I know, there were a few people that had the Bills. And I was like, I wish I had the Bills left. I'm glad I didn't have the Bills left.
It's good. The same thing happened to me. I'm still in my regular Survivor, and just I didn't have the Bills available to me. Probably would have taken them, so I just used the Seahawks instead. Anyway, that's Survivor. LeagueSafe.com/PME in order to sign up and get in on the Monday night game if you didn't get in on it already. $5K to the winners, so you might want to check that out. So, Jake, running back rankings for the week. We'll start with the injury report. We have Christian McCaffrey, who seems like he's going to be good to go for Monday Night Football. He's expected in. Barkley seems like he's going to be okay with this elbow injury he sustained on the weekend. I suppose we can talk about Bijan Robinson and his headaches. He's like new school Percy Harvin over here. I don't know what the hell was going on with him. Jerome Ford looks like he's going to miss some time with this ankle injury, leading to more of Kareem Hunt and Lucky Pierre Strong. We'll see if Deion Jackson ends up getting into that mix as well for the Browns going forward. Roschon Johnson still hasn't practiced since suffering his concussion. Obviously, Khalil Herbert is still out, so I don't know if Roschon plays. I don't have Roschon in the rankings right now because I need to see him to be on the field at some point before putting him back into the rankings. David Montgomery missed the week. He's probably going to continue to be out. And then Zach Charbonnet. No idea whether or not he's coming back, but he does have a hamstring injury. He did not play in Week 7. Hamstrings generally take like 2 to 3 weeks, so I wouldn't expect him to play. I have him out of the rankings as well, which means we can flip over to the rankings with no bye weeks. It should be pretty easy to try to fill out your roster unless you just have bad running backs. You got McCaffrey, Pollard, Etienne, Kamara, Gibbs with no Montgomery. I mean, he got the full workload. We're full send on Jahmyr Gibbs right now. Kenneth Walker, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Raheem Mostert, Breece Hall, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Bijan Robinson, I have at 14. Let's stop there. Do you think that's too high, too low, or just right on Bijan Robinson, not knowing what the hell is going on?
I think it's too low, just because you said not knowing what the hell is going on. The interesting thing is, I don't know that we are going to get the full story because you saw it as well as everybody with full panic mode, and then we saw tweets, and it's like I don't even remember who the person's account that was most retweeted, but saying like I asked Arthur Smith, and he said he was feeling sore after last week, so they wanted to be safe, which then spiraled into it's not just sore, supposedly it was headaches, and I'm not besmirching migraines. I've had migraines. So we know you referenced the Percy Harvin thing. Like migraines could be super serious. The weird part about it is if you have migraines that are that bad, you're not out there pass blocking. That was a weird thing. You didn't get the one carry till the end of the game, but he was on the field and he was on the field pass blocking. That doesn't seem like a migraine situation. I don't know. At least the migraines I've had. If I've had migraines where I want to like lay on the couch and wrap my head up in ice, like I've never wanted to go, oh, I'm going to go block a 250-pound linebacker. Like I don't get it. So I'm actually going with your former boss, good friend still, and my current boss and good friend is Dono DeFindo, who we were texting about it. And he said, what if it's sending a message? What if he said he was sore after last game and Arthur Smith was just like, fine, you're going to say you're sore? Then we'll see what's going to happen this week. And he kind of made the word that rhymes with wussy, but it's not that word that Nando said.
Oh, Nando.
Nando coming hot fire.
So some blue language coming from Nando DeFino through text. I think that he'll be fine going into this week. I think it'll be all systems go like it normally is. But what we've seen from Bijan so far this season is that if you spent a top 3 pick on him, it sounds like a pretty shitty pick at this point.
Yeah, and we're kind of can we victory lap that already?
I don't want to victory lap it only because we still have an entire half of the season to go. And if he does take over this job, like if he was getting 20, if he got the Gibbs workload from last week, he would be a top 5 running back.
He would. And I know his fate's Titans, but the Titans we've seen that are beatable by running backs this year. I say too low because Mixon's been nothing but a floor play, and he's got the 49ers. Josh Jacobs is not his fault. It's completely the offense. I would still play Bijan over him. Pacheco, I could see in front of him. Breece Hall, I could. And Mostert. Mostert, who's Miami have again this week? They play at home, don't they?
They play the Patriots.
New England, they play the Patriots. So Jeff Wilson, one touch in that game, was barely even involved. I have no problem going back to Mostert, so I'd slide him in front of 2, maybe 3 if I was really picking, but it's mostly because he's the Josh Jacobs situation. Assuming like this was just a one-off weird situation type of week, it's all the passing game that it's involved with. And Tyler Algier, until this past week, have been going down in involvement. So I would still have Bijan Robinson inside the top 10.
Yeah, it'd be tough too to have him on your team, even experience what happened last week in order to not play him. It's just you have to temper your expectations of what that's going to be. The upside we know is still there, but at least there was a floor that was built in, even in a split scenario where, he wasn't necessarily getting a bunch of the goal line touches, but he was still getting his 4 catches a game, piling on yardage on top of that, and still getting 15 carries. Like it was still a good situation to be in, points per game wise. Still like a fringe top 10 guy, but we're not going to see him reach those new levels until he becomes more involved. So I think 14 is a decent spot. It's funny, I have Rashad White directly behind him, who might be, we talked a little bit about like Alexander Madison and Miles Sanders earlier on in the year when they were getting this extreme usage, and they were like, okay, like you could play them as like the lowest of low running back 2s. If they score a touchdown, maybe they'll be better than that, but they have this like very safe floor for like 8 to 10 points, and anything above that's just like, that'd be great if they were able to do that. Rashad White is sort of like the best case scenario of these guys because he doesn't really seem to do anything ever, yet you look at his fantasy points, it's like, all right, he's not bad.
Yeah, he was like kind of bad the last game before this. Like I still think there's a little bit up and down to it where, I mean, if you're going to say no Roshan Johnson, I play Deonta Foreman over him. I'm not expecting 3 touchdowns again. I would play Barkley even in that situation. I'd play Barkley over him just because the talent. Dameon Pierce is a little bit high. Just this Singletary thing, I know we're not talking about him, and I know we're talking about Rashad White, but just the biggest beef I had with your ranks so far were just in this range. Was this basically Rashad White to DeAndre Swift kind of range?
I think it just, a lot of it depends on matchup for one thing. And the Pierce thing is, it's a lot like the Bijan thing where like, hey, is that a 1 week aberration where Singletary was this involved for the Texans that maybe they swing back to Pierce like we've seen for the majority of the season? Or maybe I'm just going to be behind the times and there's a scenario that's evolving in the Houston backfield and just, I'm wrong about it. I think I would still take the talent of Dameon Pierce, and if he can get his 17 to 20 touches, I'd be very comfortable playing him over Barkley. Like, it's tough to run on the Eagles, man. or on the Jets. Sorry,
It is.
Although, and I don't know who's playing quarterback either for the Giants. I'm guessing it's Tyrod again, but it might not be. Daniel Jones might be fine.
Yeah, he was limited practices all week, but then they said he wasn't close on Friday, so it'll be interesting. I guess the question I have for you, Rashad White, is which volume are we talking about here? Are we talking about
Pass
you talking about
catching.
the Eagles' run defense? No. I mean, like in week 3 against the Eagles, he was over 80% of the touches. Last week, he was over 80% of the touches. The other 40 games or 44 games, he was at like 60 to 62 to 63%, and that's where you got a lot of the single-digit performances from. It's like 4 to the 6 games he's been in that muck of too many shares going to other options, and not that the other options are great between Sean Tucker and Keyshawn Vaughn, mostly Keyshawn Vaughn, but is it the Eagles and the Falcons game? And if you are, then I don't really have much of a problem. I would still play Barkley in front of him. I know you said you don't run in the Jets, but I would still play Barkley in front of him, just talent. I would still play Foreman in front of him. But I think that it comes down to who do you trust more? Do you trust the 80% or do you trust the 60%?
I think I would go, especially against the Bills on a quick turnaround week on Thursday night, and especially with how the Bills' defense has looked, and the Bills are still big favorites in that game, obviously, that the two teams that you pointed to, like, although that game was close against the Falcons on Sunday, the Falcons kind of beat them into the ground and then just turned the ball over inside the 5-yard line like 3 times. Like, the score was a lot closer than how that game actually went. And then you had that game against the Eagles earlier where the Eagles just kind of ran train on them, where this could be a scenario where Buffalo gets right, or maybe Buffalo's so broken that the game ends up being closer. But against these opponents that are beating them offensively on the other side of the ball, we have seen more involvement in Rashad White in those cases.
Okay. And in that case, which is a really good argument, I would take him over Pierce. I just would still take Barkley and Foreman.
Okay, so
I get the Jets, but like
I'll
Barkley's
read
fine.
I'm with you. Yeah, we'll go Mixon, Robinson, Foreman, Barkley. Should I go Barkley above?
Oh, I would even slide Mixon further down.
Oh, you'd slide Mixon.
I don't think
further
Mixon. Does he have double-digit points yet this year?
I don't know. I mean, he must have scored a touchdown at some point that maybe I'm just forgetting about. I would expect to see, I don't want to say a new look Bengals, but I think we're going to see the Bengals closer to what we were expecting them to look like coming into the year before the Burrow injury. Now that he's been able to recuperate a little bit coming off a bye week, it feels like there are a bit more systems go now. That would be a boost to Joe Mixon, I think.
Okay, that's fair. But I think Mixon for me would fall more into the Rashad White conversation. Here's actually full point PPR, not half. I know I default to that, but I pulled up the full point PPR for your show. 10, 13.5, 14, 8.6, 13.4, 9.2. Mixon's just basically been Michael Thomas or running backs. Floor.
Just a guy. So yeah, I'll move him down from 12 to 16. So we'll go Jacobs, Bijan, Donta Foreman with no Roshan. Even if there is a Roshan, it's not like Evans wasn't involved. Like, Evans played almost like 50% of the snaps anyway. He had 15 carries. Just Foreman was the one who got the useful carries.
Well, there's two things to factor there. One
Blowout.
is Foreman actually got banged up late. Yeah, and then the blowout. Foreman left. He came back out and then left, and then he wasn't 100% at the end of the game. I wouldn't be surprised if we get kind of like he misses practice on Wednesday. It didn't sound like it should be serious, and there was no reporting of it, so I would assume it's not serious. But that was part of it too. It was the blowout, and then also he got dinged up at the end of the game. So, but I'm with you in the fact that Roshan can be involved, and like there was a speculation when Herbert got hurt that Roshan could be the lead, but as you said, he hasn't been able to get practice in at all. So I don't know that they shove him right back out there and be like, all right, here's your chance to be the lead option with the way that Foreman's playing.
So Mixon 16, Rashad White 17, Dameon Pierce 18. That bumps Barkley up to number 15. After that,
I like that better.
I got the Gus Bus, number 19. Look good. He had 80% of his career receiving yards on one catch on Sunday.
Was it really 80%? Was that legitimately 80%?
I don't think it was 80%. I think it was like 64% or something like that.
Okay, I joked and tweeted out 90%. That's how believable it was. I thought 80% was the real number.
It's just one nice design. Oh, I will throw this out because I had bet Justice Hill under receptions in London like 2 weeks ago. And the first play of the game was a designed pass to Justice Hill. I was like, oh, we're screwed here. And then he didn't have any other involvement in the receiving game until the first play of the second half, which was a pass to Justice Hill. The first play of the Lions game, a pass to Justice Hill. I think that just might be their first play on their script every single time.
Is there somewhere you can bet the play?
I don't know. I was going to ask you.
That's interesting. That's funny. Like, so you just made me think of, I retweeted Nate Geary, pulled up the second down and short for the Bills this past week, and 2nd and 4, 2nd and 2, 3, 4, 2, 4. So there was 6 2nd and 4 shorts. James Cook run. All 6 of them were James Cook runs. Like some of these coaches are like, I don't know what's going on in their brains. That's absurd. Both of those things are absurd to be that predictable.
Edwards, I mean, it's funny because I have Edwards at 19. If you want to tell me Justice Hill is 19 and swap him places down the list with Gus Edwards, it seems to be in one off, one not off type of situation with them. Edwards seems like the better back, and I don't want to say he's most likely to get a goal line touch because, Lamar tends to take some of those as well. But I'm just going to roll with Gus Edwards. I think he's better than Justice Hill, so he's number 19.
That's Arizona, too.
Yeah, Swift, James Cook, Jonathan Taylor, your guy, Jonathan Taylor. Ramondre Madison at 24. Miles Sanders coming back. I assume he takes his job back from Chuba Hubbard at 25. Kareem Hunt, Brian Robinson. Who is this Gonzalez guy, and why was he getting so many carries?
Chris Rodriguez.
Yeah, that guy.
Gonzalez.
I was just getting tilted by, who the fuck is this guy? What's he doing in there?
That's the rookie that they drafted. He's kind of between the tackles. I skewed away from my light there. Between the tackles, Pounder. I think it was just, I don't know. Maybe they're getting frustrated with Brian Robinson lately. I mean, we were talking about him at the beginning of the season. It was fun because he was being treated as a bell cow, and Antonio Gibson was written out of this. And I've been saying I'd buy low on Brian. I tried to buy low on Brian Robinson, thinking this was just tough matchups and they get right. The Giants, they're not that fearsome. The stats are there. We saw the Sam Howell stat. Like I even tweeted out too. He's on pace for 97 sacks. The next closest was 76, which was Carr's brother, David Carr, his rookie season with the Texans. This is an absurd rate, but it's affecting Brian Robinson too. And that's where I'm saying I wonder if more power with Rodriguez is why they're doing this, because the line can't do anything. And now we're headed towards a full-blown committee, which would be worrisome. So I think where you have Brian Robinson is worth the worry that we now see.
So do you think that 27 is accurate for a ranking, or do you think that's...
Yeah, I think that's a fair spot for him.
Okay.
He's certainly, of people in this range, like Aaron Jones right behind him. Aaron Jones, if he gets back to 100%. Yeah, if he gets back to 100%, because he didn't look like he was limited health-wise, but they clearly weren't bringing him back to that 70% work that we saw of week 1. But he has an upside to finish as an RB1. Brian Robinson can finish as an RB1. But I think this is the spot you have to put him in, is because there's risk of how much they're splitting.
Javonte at 29, the Lion of DeMercado is going to be...
back.
He's back, baby. At number 30, Jalen Warren, Zach Moss, Justice Hill, Latavius Murray, Darrell Henderson, Najee Harris, Jaleel McLaughlin, Antonio Gibson, Craig Reynolds, and then Ezekiel Elliott before Royce Freeman, Lucky Pierre Strong, Spears, Singletary, Chuba Hubbard. A.J. Dillon's getting all the work for the Packers. Doesn't matter. Although he led them in both receiving and rushing on Sunday. Still wasn't startable in fantasy. That's always fun when that happens. So I want to swing back and talk about some of these guys in the low 20s. In this Cleveland situation, I don't expect to see Jerome Ford for a bit. It looks like it could be a high ankle sprain. Maybe he turns out to be fine. You can go back to playing Ford. But it's not that I was concerned, because Hunt scored 2 touchdowns. That's great. But it's not like he was the bell cow the moment that Ford went out. They used a lot of Pierre Strong in that game.
Yeah, and then you brought up that they could activate Deion Jackson, and then you have another option in that backfield. I think where you have Hunt, I'm going to go back to your list. 26?
Yeah.
I might play him. You know what? If it was me, I'd probably play him in front of Miles Sanders. I don't disagree with you about Miles Sanders coming off the bye. My concern is that Chuba Hubbard's looked good enough that it could just be a 50-50 split, where at least I know Kareem Hunt is going to be the lead. Yeah, he will be the lead, but does that also mean 50%? So of the two, I at least know Hunt is. I hope Sanders is. Your point is also worth noting there, but they are facing Seattle. I think Kareem Hunt, even with 55% of the work, could be a top 20 result. I don't think I'd play him in front of Taylor. I don't play him in front of Madison, who is getting all the work. No Cam Akers, assuming that happens again tonight, as we're doing this before the Monday Night Football game. But I think it's a fair spot for him. The other one in this list, who is DeMercado. I wanted to go back to that. So we went from DeMercado and then all of a sudden nothing, and it was Keontae Ingram, who was the one that was nothing this week. I pulled it up. DeMercado was second to Ken Walker in RB touch percentage for his team this week. Set 94% of the touches. He only gave up, 2 touches? If I'm doing my math in my head correctly.
To Damian Williams.
Yeah. So, I want to put him higher, but it's
so do I. But you watch the Cardinals' offense. The Cardinals' offense is, to quote Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were. They're not good. They're really bad.
No. No, and Josh Dobbs was really bad. Josh Dobbs is falling off the cliff. I saw reports where they're saying why not give Clayton Tune a start before you get, because Josh Dobbs is 29 and see what you have in Tune and before Kyler Murray gets back in a week or two. And
I will give
that, that would be an extension.
I got to give Josh Dobbs a lot of credit. I had Michael Wilson over 2.5 receptions, and he had the first play. It wasn't the first play. It was the first play of their second first down on that final drive to get into when they were down by 10 and just trying to get down the field. Michael Wilson, there it is. But Clayton Tune actually threw Michael Wilson one of the other passes in that game on fourth down, too.
Yeah, I actually had Michael Wilson over in the yards. I didn't get the yards. You got the receptions. I didn't get the yards. I was hoping for that matchup a lot. Again, something I had pulled up last week is that, and it still holds true because the Seahawks run the most zone. Michael Wilson's entire production has come against zone this year, 0 against man. Mostly because Josh Dobbs, first read. And if you're not open, he's looking elsewhere. And Michael Wilson doesn't get open that quickly against man. So the Clayton Tune could throw a wrench into everybody's problem. I wouldn't have him that much higher, but I'd have Darrell Henderson in front of him. And I know it's a bad matchup, but I would have Darrell Henderson in front of him. That one, I said completely avoid the Rams if you can. So initially early in the week, I was like, go pick up Zach Evans because you have to take that chance on the next running back being up. And then we got the reports on Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning that it was going to be Royce Freeman. It was going to be Darrell Henderson. He's picking up the offense right where he left off. And I still said, avoid him at all costs. I had Darrell Henderson the highest as an RB3. That was clearly way too low. But coming in and having that much of the work and getting right back into essentially the role he had last year when Cam Akers was taken off the field, I would play Darrell Henderson in front of DeMarcado. The line of DeMarcadoation, is that how you said it, is he would be ahead of it at 30. I wouldn't play him over Javonte Williams.
Ooh, I don't know about that. I think I would play DeMarcado.
I said wouldn't.
I would play DeMarcado over Darrell Henderson at the moment. I just want to look up.
I wouldn't.
I just want to look up the snap count because I think it was pretty close between. And to watch the game, Royce Freeman looked better than he did. So
he performed better on his touches, but it's relative. So 61.3% of the touches to Henderson, and it was 38.7 for Royce Freeman.
Yeah, but I mean, if DeMarcado is getting 95% of his team's touches, that might be enough volume to overcome. Because if Henderson doesn't score that touchdown. Now, I know that he was given the opportunity to score it. That is valuable. That his game is pretty crappy.
62 yards compared to what? 70-something for DeMarcado?
Yeah, but how many catches for DeMarcado? 2 or 3?
4, and Darrell Henderson had 1. So, I get your point, but I'm just going to trust the offense. Shitty touches are shitty touches.
True. I think I'm good with DeMarcado above Henderson this week because I could actually see Zach Evans getting 3 or 4 carries this time around and not just playing special.
Oh, now he's going to be inactive. They're going to activate Myles Gaskin and Zach Evans isn't going to be. Zach Evans, you know what his snaps were? 3 snaps on special teams. Actually, it might have been 4 come the end of the game.
The other big one, Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss. There was no real difference between the split that's been going on between them. So it might be actually a very sneaky Zach Moss week if you really wanted to do it, but Taylor just looked better was kind of your point going. But they're still playing both 50% of the snaps. They were very close in touches. It's not like Zach Moss is going to be a part of this offense. And if you wanted to talk me into Zach Moss over Aaron Jones and Javonte Williams, there's a good chance he out-touches those guys.
There's a good chance, to your point here, 49.3% of the snaps for Jonathan Taylor, 50.7 for Moss, 50 and 50 split down straight down the middle in carries, and then 52% total for Taylor and 47% Moss. So that's the reason too I still like Taylor, especially when we're talking half and then full point PPR ranks like you are, is Taylor is the passing game option on top of things.
Yes, and that was, a week ago, that wasn't as much the case. They both ran a lot of routes. They both had a lot of receptions. That it felt like it's whoever was on the field was going to be that. But they had they were splitting out Jonathan Taylor wide at some points in that game. Maybe it was because they were playing the Browns D. They had to get the ball out quickly on these short routes. That was just easier to line him up out wide rather than try to let him develop a route out of the backfield. But they were actively trying to get the ball into his hands. It was more my point this week that I don't think that we can just write off Zach Moss as he is a non-factor to both Jonathan Taylor and your fantasy team only because he just continues to get double-digit touches every single week. People still roster Tyler Algier and want to play Tyler Algier. It's maybe Bijan doesn't do much. Zach Moss is just doing what he's doing, but more.
And I was looking at the people you have behind Zach Moss. Darrell Henderson would be the only one. I already made my case for him. He'd be the only one that would play in front of Zach Moss because of all these timeshares, he's better than, including who you have as the still quote unquote lead, Najee Harris. I would play Zach Moss over Najee Harris as well.
Yeah. Najee Harris bad, man. And not only is he bad, he's like
And then they both scored.
Yeah. Of course they did. So I'll move.
He should be your new worst place because we all finally gave up on him and then he scores a touchdown.
It didn't even really help out all that much. What did he end up with? Like 13 fantasy points after scoring a touchdown? Or do you have like 3?
I don't know. Was that his first double-digit scoring game? It was fine, Najee Harris.
Probably pretty close. He probably has a bunch of like 10.8s or something like that.
No, he got 15.8 in full point PPR, 14.3 in half.
Look at him go. What a hero.
14 for 53.
What a hero.
A touch.
So I'll move Darrell Henderson to 32 above Zach Moss at 33. And then we just go down the list a little bit. Who are the Lions playing this week? Remind me again. For some reason, it's just eluding me at the moment.
Wow, you're actually asking me to check the schedule for you? It's a Monday night. Monday night, Vegas at home.
Against Vegas. I could see if...
Probably the most popular... Sorry, go ahead.
As a flyer, I could see Craig Reynolds being more involved this week in a game where they're favored.
I could definitely see that too. The two games, actually, to go back to earlier this season, and why this... you brought up the volume for Gibbs. When we missed David Montgomery that earlier part this year, Gibbs actually was that kind of workload. He was 80% in that game. He was over 80%. And that was back when Zonovan Knight was still in the mix. So I get what you're saying, but if it's a surprise and they aren't like easily in the lead, then, I wouldn't like Craig Reynolds where you have him. You're just hoping that they're blowing them out, honestly. Because if they're not, I don't think Craig Reynolds is even playable. I was going to say the most popular survivor pick this week, the Lions coming off a loss, getting back home against the Raiders.
Well, the Raiders are pretty transparent with what they're trying to do. They were like, hey, this is the drive where we only throw to Devontae Adams. Okay, we're never going to throw to him again. All right, we have this new drive. And this new set of plays, it's only throw to Jacoby Myers. We're going to do that for a while now. And then we're going to kick this field goal from the 1-yard line, despite the fact that we're down by 20 points. Like, I don't know what they're doing in Vegas right now.
Yes, you do. What I thought you were going to say, they're clearly going for Caleb Williams and hoping to get the first pick, and somehow Carolina wins a game or two. I think that's what they're clearly doing.
I don't know. I think you're giving them too much credit.
I think Josh McDaniels is just trying to get out of a job. I don't think he wants to even be there anymore.
He just wants to get fired and like wait out the end of his deal and be like, hey, I'll get paid for 2 years to do nothing. That sounds great. It does sound
I'll
great.
do that.
Yeah, I think we'd
it
all
does.
sign up for that. Is there anyone lower on this list that you think that you would go to at running back?
Gainwell, and that would be the same situation as Craig Reynolds. It's like he fell into the end zone this past week, and you hope that the Eagles are smashing Washington, which they should be. Holy crap, Sam Howell might die this week. Outside of that, I know Jeff Wilson would have been more interesting, but as I mentioned earlier, he only got one touch, and it was wasn't towards the end of the game too. This is a week where you don't need to worry about things. The only one might change is after we see Monday Night Football to see what Elijah Mitchell's involvement is.
Yeah, and I think that could be a misnomer as well if McCaffrey isn't 100% and they're just spelling him to get him, to ease the burden a little bit that Mitchell's a little bit more involved. I don't necessarily think that would translate to the following week, potentially. If McCaffrey's closer to 100%, it might just push Mitchell back again. So it could just mislead you in the wrong direction.
But even before McCaffrey got hurt, he had been pulling back the team had been pulling back from that 95% RB touch percentage, and it was dropping down to like the 80s. They were already starting to lessen the load a little bit with Jordan Mason.
Wide receivers for the week. Once again, no one on bye, so we're looking pretty good. I got Debo is out. They've already made mention that he'll return after San Francisco's bye, which I believe is in 2 weeks' time. Christian Watson exited the game with a knee injury for the Packers in the very last drive. He might miss like 2 to 3 weeks here. It's turning into a season from hell for Christian Watson in terms of health, where he won't be able to get himself right. Jalen Waddle came back into the game, so I'm guessing that he's going to be fine against the Patriots. Keep an eye on him. He's in the rankings. I have Metcalf in the rankings. He was very close to playing in week 7. He should play in week 8. Zay Jones, I still have out until he can prove that he can have a full practice. Then I'm just keeping him out. Justin Watson's probably going to be out. Juju, I'm not sure. I would have assumed he would have been back last week, but he wasn't, so continue to keep an eye on him. And then you have guys coming off the bye week: Chenault, Chris Moore, Tank Dell, and Traylon Burks. Chris Moore got knocked out in London, so I have no idea if the bye week he passed concussion protocol. This is all information that we're going to learn throughout the course of the week. I do have Tank Dell in the rankings, so I do have him back in. So when we jump over, I mean, you're playing the guys that you would normally play: Tyreek, Kupp, A.J. Brown, Jamar, Diggs, Amon-Ra. I got Thielen at number 7. Is that wishful thinking or is that proper?
Why would it be wishful thinking? He's top 5 wide receiver since week 2.
Yeah.
He's getting all the targets, all the yards, all the air yards, all the opportunities. I mean, he's essentially Keenan Allen, who you have right behind him.
I was going to say that. He's like good Keenan Allen.
Good Keenan Allen. The problem is like the difference is the perception is that you see the Carolina Panthers and their quarterback situation and offense versus Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense, and people just automatically think, well, one stinks and the other one's good. They're essentially the same guy.
I didn't bring this up in the running back ranks, but I'll talk about it with Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler haven't been great recently.
I think part of it is the offense. Maybe Austin Eckler isn't still 100%. I think the offense, too, has just been a little disjointed of late. And that thumb issue, even though it's not his throwing hand, like, it's just, I don't know. Something seems off about Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert hasn't been great as of recent either.
True. I got CD at 9, Devontae Adams, Puka at number 11, Ayuk without Debo, Nico Collins, Drake London. Like Drake London's in store for a big week here, potentially, against the Titans. We'll see. Jacoby Myers at 15, who just continues to rake every single week. Zay Flowers, DJ Moore, T. Higgins, DK at number 19, Olave at number 20. Olave blew up what would have been a big win for me in the same game parlay on Thursday night. All I needed him to do was have over 61 yards. He had 15 targets in the game, had 59 yards. Like, thanks a lot, Chris, thanks a lot, Derek Carr, for
I was about to say, you're thinking the
absolute
wrong
jabroni.
person.
Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, Terry McLaurin. I have Christian Kirk here without Zay Jones, Devonta Smith, Cortland Sutton, George Pickens. Pickens needs Deontay Johnson to be on the field, by the way, in order to really unleash what he is good at. He needs.
He's a whole nother person.
Yeah, again, it's incredible to watch him run these routes, like not being the focal point of the other team's defense because they know they have to account for Deontay and these like slithering routes underneath.
It's Calvin Ridley with and without Zay Jones. Calvin Ridley without Zay Jones, we talked about it for weeks, and people kept ranking Calvin Ridley in front of him. Like, when there's no Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley gets all the attention and can't get open. He needs Zay Jones. I completely agree with you. It's just a different look for George Pickens when he can actually get some softer coverage.
Gabe Davis, Michael Pittman, Tyler Lockett is number 30. Then we got Godwin, Kendrick Bourne, Jordan Addison, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley at number 35, Hollywood Brown at number 36, Amari Cooper, Rashee Rice, DeAndre Hopkins, and Romeo Doubs. I do have Malik Willis playing quarterback for the Titans in these rankings, by the way, not Ryan Tannehill.
So DeAndre Hopkins is about 20 spots too high, is what you're telling me?
I don't know. I mean, it's not like
I'm a Malik Willis guy. Like, don't forget that. Like, I like Malik Willis. I want him to get a chance. But to be honest, to this point of his career, he's looked worse passing than Desmond Ridder and Anthony Richardson. It's bad. But, I'm not going to fault you too much for Hopkins. I tell you what, floor-wise, I mean, Josh Downs, that's my boy. Josh Downs, I would play over Hopkins if you wanted the floor. It's not the best matchup because he's facing the Saints, though.
Yeah, they're all in the same area. I think that you guys can make the decision on that one. So Hopkins, Dubs, Michael Thomas, Josh Downs, Tank Dell, Curtis Samuel, KJ Osborne, Robert Woods, Garrett Wilson, Josh Palmer, Wendell, and Jaden Reed. Like, that's what we're looking at now. And I don't have Christian Watson in, so Dubs and Jaden Reed are higher than...
Right.
And Musgrave is probably going to miss the week, too.
And I know it's Zach Wilson, but Garrett Wilson has to be higher against the Giants. Giants corners can't stop anybody.
All right, how high do we put Garrett Wilson?
I'd play Garrett Wilson with Zach Wilson over DeAndre Hopkins with Malik Willis.
Would you play him over Rashee Rice?
That's why I put him right there, because I hesitated. Denver's defense has been better since week 4, but it's still highly beatable. I think right there is worth the risk. I think right there is where Cleveland's got Seattle, and then the P.J. Walker, Deshaun Watson situation. I think that group is a fair spot for him.
So do you want Zach Wilson with Garrett Wilson, or do you want potentially... I think it's going to be Deshaun. I think Stefanski said that after the game, that they were just like holding him out to keep him healthy.
Yeah.
Listen, does it make a difference? Because, like, again, they continue to post these spreads. normally, like if you're unsure if a quarterback is playing or not playing, they hold the spread on the game unless they have a really good idea of who's going to play. What Vegas is telling us, or what DraftKings is telling us, DraftKings Sportsbook, play at DraftKings Sportsbook, by the way. So anyone who sets odds is telling you that there is no difference between PJ Walker and Deshaun Watson. Like bet it. Go ahead and bet it.
Hey, look, you're not wrong at all, and that's why I didn't want to. I should have listened to my gut on that one. I didn't want to rank Amari Cooper as a wide receiver 2, top 20, but I'm like, all these teams on a bye, and Deshaun Watson's going to play. At least he'll get peppered, and then, man, that was miserable. So you have Amari Cooper at 37. So this is where they should be. Calvin Ridley. I mean, honestly, you could argue he should be further down, but this group that you have, basically everywhere from Bourne, actually even got Lockett's been bad.
I know.
Lockett has 2 games over 9 points this year.
Him and Godwin. But you watch the games, and it doesn't necessarily translate. Like, you're watching Lockett, and he's, like, open on every play. Like, Geno's been secret bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret anymore.
And
he's been bad.
I mean, Baker's Baker, but, like, when they need... he just loves throwing deep to Evans every single time, and these weird underneath routes to and they also love going deep to Trey Palmer. Like, hey, let's get Devin Tompkins involved. But like when they need a first down, there's just Chris Godwin open 8 yards over the center of the field every time.
Yeah. Hey, if you're talking about objectively who's playing better football this year, Baker Mayfield's playing better than Geno Smith is.
Yeah. Still rather have Geno, I think.
Fantasy?
Yeah, no, just
real life.
Just real life.
I'm Baker. I'm apologetic for Baker. I feel good for it. I'm glad he's finally playing well because I feel like he was a victim of his circumstances.
Yeah, but I also don't think that he's great either. Like he is still a below average quarterback in the NFL, which is fine.
I say mid. He's mid. He's mid-average. Yeah. Which is not bad. It's just what happened out of college in his first year in the NFL, saying that touchdown record at the time is everybody went bananas, and then as soon as he struggled, and then all the optics, and also that team was trash back then. But I'm looking down your list because I know what your next question is. I'm seeing if there's anybody further down the list.
I had 2 things to point out here. One is about Calvin Ridley. Would there have been a better trade in retrospect than trading him after week 1?
No.
Like what you would have got for him after week 1. And 2, is Hollywood Brown the best buy low right now with Kyler potentially coming back?
Oh, absolutely. And to go back to your first question, if you would have sent Calvin Ridley straight up for Puka Nacua after week 1.
Oh, yeah. Everyone would have done it.
I loved it.
I love Puka, and I would have made that trade.
Yeah. So, like, that's it. I'm looking at that now. And so, I mean, you could argue, again, to go back to this, you could argue that Calvin Ridley should be lower. The one that I will push higher from down your list, which I hit this past week, again, look, I know it was only 2 catches, and maybe it was 3 at the end of the game. But if they're going to keep throwing 40 yards down to Jalen Hyatt every single pass, he's essentially your Justin Watson argument.
Yeah, he's like, hold on. There's a difference in the Justin Watson argument when one guy has Patrick Mahomes throwing to him, the other one has either Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor. That's the big difference.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but holy crap, you want to know what his air yards per target in that game was 33.6. And he just has to catch 2 to be relevant. That's all it takes.
I know this because I had a same game parlay trying to rig the algorithm a little bit because I know that he's one of these high ADOT players. I had it with Jameson.
Oh, you did the catches yards thing.
I did. And he ended up, I had over 30 yards receiving and under 1.5 catches. And he had it all game long until he caught the second one.
I was hoping it was going to be under 3 receptions.
No, they do not do that. And the Jameson Williams under 1.5 receptions hit because he had 0, but they took their shots with him. He had 6 targets.
I know, they chucked it down. There were some awful targets, though, for that. And you hit it at the end of the game. That was like, a few minutes to go when you hit that?
For what?
For Jameson? Wasn't that like, that was late in the 4th, wasn't it, when he finally got that catch?
No, he had 0 catches.
Yeah, Jameson. I thought he got the 1 at the end of the game. Did he not?
Paul, did he end up getting 1? I don't think
he came out with 0.
I thought he ended up with 0.
No, my fantasy team's so bad. I actually started him. So he had 6 targets, 0 fantasy points.
That's good times.
Wow. I thought he got 1 at the end of the game.
No. So okay, I'll move Hyatt up. If they're actually committed to using him in this offense and using him in this way, that means that it's sort of like the Bush League version of what Ted Ginn used to be.
Ooh. That's a good comparison. Yeah, because here's the thing: like they are committed to finally using him 67% of the routes this time, and then he's targeted 21% of the time when he runs a route. It's essentially like what you just Nate Washington is the name that came to mind for me. That's just who he is at this point. Bigger Nate Washington, obviously.
So let's put him in this mix with Jaden Reed, Rashid Shaheed, and Tutu Atwell, because Shaheed and Atwell are kind of the same sorts of players, but they do run. They get involved more with bubble screens as well, which helps.
So I would put. So this is what if my ranks, I would put Atwell, then Hyatt, but then I would drop Wan'Dale Robinson behind all of them because he's kind of getting eliminated from the equation. That being said, if Daniel Jones, I don't have a problem with Wan'Dale Robinson where you do. If it's Tyrod Taylor doesn't really seem to like Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, it was strange because that was a thing that blew me up this week. I thought that it would just be because of the weather situation. I went over on Samuel, over on Logan Thomas, and over on
Well,
Wendell.
Samuel left. Was he just taking a poop or something? Because nobody reported. I watched him run to the locker room and he was gone for a good drive or two.
But then he came back and dropped that fourth down. And that was the end of it. No, that was Dotson. That was your
know.
boy Dotson who dropped the fourth down.
I know. Yeah, I was going to say, I know the fourth down.
Samuel slipped on the third down when he had it.
Yep, he had it, and then Dotson, and people want to be like, "Oh, the pass wasn't." No, that he's an NFL receiver. He should have caught that.
So, did the Ravens play a lot of man? Because should I move Michael Wilson up?
I could find out, but no, I don't care against the Ravens. They could run no man. They're all man and no zone. I don't care. The Ravens are that formidable. Again, this is the Ravens defense we used to be afraid of. I don't want to start people against the Ravens if I don't have to.
Where would you rank Jackson Smith and Jigba if DK ends up sitting again? Like, how high would he go up in the rankings?
So what do we got for Seattle? Cleveland?
Yeah.
Cleveland's been more exploitable the last 2 weeks.
Well, okay, so I will say this. Watching a ton of that game, that the Browns defense that we envision in our minds, like this great historical defense, was present for 90% of the plays against the Colts. It's just the other 10% of plays went for touchdowns for 80 yards. It was weird.
Yeah, big plays.
Yeah.
Big plays. And that's where they are exploitable. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba would fall into that Dobbs, Rice, Hopkins, Thomas range.
So
there is now.
So you'd still play Lockett over JSN.
I would, but I'd pull Lockett back.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
I just as a whole, you already have him at 30. I don't know that you can go that much lower on Lockett. Lockett's still what he always was. If we go back throughout the years, Lockett was always underrated in fantasy, but he was also always inconsistent. He's Deshaun Jackson. You get like 8 good games, you get 8 terrible bad ones, but and there's maybe a highlight or 2 in there where it's almost he scored 25 this week. This is what he's always been. It's just more pronounced right now because Geno Smith, as we talked about, Geno Smith has been playing too poorly to get that 50-50 split of good games to bad games.
Should Kendrick Bourne be higher?
You're never gonna get me to say.
I know, but you
can put him higher.
Like the last 2 weeks, he's been legitimately good.
What was this team? To be fair, because Douglas is getting a lot of opportunities too, I want to pull it here. I'll pull it right now where Bourne was in team target percentage. 23% last week. So
in the week
if
before,
you want to, I'm not going to argue.
I guarantee you it was higher.
Was it? I'm going to pull it up.
He had 9 catches, so I would hope so.
I mean, that's true. Let's give me a second and I'll pull up for you. So if you want to move, you do your little thing while you're moving up higher, and I'll tell you what it was for week 6.
Well, I can move on to the tight end injuries that we're going over right now. Luke Musgrave.
Well, there you go. So there you go. 35% last week.
Okay, so yeah,
I mean, got 35 and 23% the past 2 games. You can make a case to put him higher, and I won't argue with you.
Yeah, but I think that's a fair hedge in between where he could just disappear and have no catches because we've seen that too.
Yeah.
So. Luke Musgrave is in a walking boot for the Packers, so we have no idea whether or not he's going to play. Gerald Everett left the game with a quad injury. I have both those guys out of the rankings. Granson missed week 7. I would expect him to return for the Colts in week number 8. Dulcich, I have no idea, nor do I really care. And then you have Juwan Johnson, who continues to miss weeks with this calf injury, which is allowing Taysom Hill to continue just to run more at tight end and be more involved in this offense. So the more Juwan Johnson is out, the better it is for Taysom Hill. Not to say that Taysom Hill would go away in these circumstances, but if Juwan is on the field, that almost directly takes away from Taysom Hill. So if Juwan Johnson's out, Taysom Hill is an obvious start, I think, in my mind. Freiermuth is back on injured reserve now. because he re-aggravated his hamstring, so he's gone for at least 4 weeks. Tight ends, I mean, we can kind of talk about this in the terms of we went through this last week with the teams on bye. Now that everyone's back, who are the must-start if you have them tight ends? Like, there's different tiers of this, but like if you have Darren Waller, you're not like, oh, let me get sneaky by benching Darren Waller for Logan Thomas this week. It's like, no, you have one or the other, and Waller's the guy that you want.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's what I've told a lot of people in the rankings. They're like, if I have Waller, should I pick up whatever? I'm like, why? It's tight end. You're playing the same game. You might as well play the guy who has the highest ceiling. So Waller, you're always playing him. Evan Ingram, you're always playing. He's just floor. And it's Michael Thomas again. Is the floor guys. I don't know that you're always playing Dalton Schultz. I know you have Dalton Schultz in front of Waller, but I don't know you're always playing Dalton Schultz.
I think that for the he has entered, like, guys can go in and out of this conversation. Like Sam Laporta has entered this conversation. Goddard had fallen out for like 2 weeks. Now he's very clearly back in terms of one of the quote unquote safe tight ends that you just kind of need to play, and you'll get more good games than bad games out of him. You're still going to get a ton of bad games because it's tight end. It feels like with where Dalton Schultz is in this offense right now and the connection that he's made, especially in the red zone with CJ Stroud, is that he's someone that you just play because you might get 20 points. You might get 2, but he's going to be better than not most weeks, I think.
Sure. Okay.
Which is why I've tasted you would play Waller. I mean, I think that's nitpicky because you probably don't have both.
Yeah. Yeah. You might have. You might have picked up Schultz earlier this year with how bad Waller was to start things.
Yeah, but
but
Schultz was terrible to start the year too.
That's true. I don't know. People seem.
I don't know.
Annoyed by Waller.
I can tell you. I don't know why people are annoyed.
I think there's 9.
Yeah, I think there's 9, and I think that Taysom Hill without Juwan Johnson, he's just a start. Play him. He gets goal line carries. To play him. He gets goal line carries.
Yeah. He was the leading receiver 2 weeks ago. Yeah. He gets everything.
Like the fact that he actually catches the ball now, he gets like 4 targets a game. Like it makes him pretty valuable.
It does. I was just looking at number 11. I'm so ready for Kyle Pitts to go belly up against the Titans and piss everybody off now that he's back in lineups.
So I saw Mike Clay tweet this out, that against the Bucks, they had him split out wide at receiver and were using Van Jefferson in the slot, which is, I mean, if I was Arthur Smith, maybe they felt like they had some sort of matchup advantage, but wouldn't you want Kyle Pitts playing the inside slot, not on the outside, not against a real corner, against like a slot corner he's twice the size of? Maybe get a matchup on a linebacker or something? Like at least have that as a possibility? Maybe that's the concern, though.
Well, I mean, you say twice the size, but maybe that was the concern, is that like even if you have any size, he doesn't have the speed to get past the slot corner.
Maybe. That's not a good look for Kyle.
Well, there's a lot of bracket too. Like I'm going to be interested. I'll go back and watch that one as well too. Is they could have just in the slot corner too. Is if you have somebody he can't get past because he's not fast enough, even though he is very fast. But for a slot corner's quickness, and then you just bracket him with a linebacker, which takes him away. I mean, you could always get that. That's the problem too. Sometimes in the slot with these tight ends is that you run them there, you make it easier to get bracketed by that linebacker underneath and the slot corner over top.
I do think that he's done enough over the past few weeks to put him back into that low, just outside the top 10 conversation.
Well, you have to, because he's got top 5 upside, so you have to. It's tight end.
I don't know if he does have top 5 upside, especially not in this offense.
It was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
2 weeks ago.
Okay, so they're random tight ends. There was some guy I'd never heard of on Buffalo who I think was a top 5 tight end 2 weeks ago.
Oh, who was that?
That guy. He didn't play last week. When Kincaid was out, he played.
Quentin Morris.
That's the guy.
Yeah, with an eye.
He was inactive last week. I have Kincaid at 14. It was nice to see his route participation way up coming back, but I think
that's a big one.
But I feel like that may have been aberrational. I mean, maybe this is who the Bills are, but just playing from behind the entire time against the Patriots was interesting.
It was. I also think part of it just might be the transition from Les Knox, and Knox isn't he still banged up? Like I don't think Knox is 100% still.
Either way, I think they're
moving towards him.
There was a concern, and you always have to take playing the Patriots with a grain of salt, even if they're not a great defense. They are still going to try to quote unquote take away what you do best, or at least try to throw a wrench into what you're doing. Like Diggs obviously didn't go off in the game, but Gabe Davis was basically irrelevant in that game. It felt like they made a concerted effort to say, hey, Gabe Davis isn't doing anything in this game. Therefore, with him on lockdown or bracketed over the top, it was just a lot of, I mean, it's not like Dawson Knox didn't do anything in that game too. It's just a lot of tight end throws. They funneled everything to the tight end, which I don't think you're necessarily going to see from the Bills offense every week.
No, yeah, Gabe Davis did have 5, and you're right. That wasn't so much take away Diggs as it was take away Gabe Davis, which we sometimes see. We talk about that at times. Knox, I was pulling this up to see. Knox ran 46% of the routes. Dalton Kincaid ran 64. So I think that's part of it too. Like I said, I think they're starting to move him into what we expected, that Knox would be asked to block more when he's actually out there.
It's still not enough route participation in that offense with some of the bigger names. Like, he'll have big games. So that's why I have him at number 14. Like, if you have to go pick someone up to play him, he might be fine, but he might be like 2 for 12.
Yeah, the same as the guy you have in front of him that you hate, David Njoku.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good comp, I think. Like, those two guys and what their potential output could be.
I couldn't agree more.
And
I'm looking down the list. I would play Jonnu over Okonkwo to be nitpicky.
Okay, yeah, I'll switch those guys up, 17 and 18. I guess Okonkwo with Malik Willis should probably go down a little bit. Probably play. Trey McBride continues just to be doing stuff, which is nice. Not that you want to play him as of yet.
To doing stuff.
Well, Zach Ertz looks legit. I mean, I feel like this cycle happens every single year with Zach Ertz, where it's like, oh yeah, Zach Ertz looks really good for an old guy, and then he just kind of disappears for 6 weeks.
Gets tired.
Yeah, and then like he'll come back for 2 weeks. You're like, oh yeah, Zach Ertz. Let me play him at $3,000 on DraftKings. 0 points. Like, oh god. But Trey McBride, I'm just very. I kind of want to invest a little bit in this Arizona offense now that everyone is so cheap, with the potential that if Kyler comes back and Kyler's all right, that he can elevate these guys up. And we know that McBride is someone, like, people are enamored with Dalton Kincaid because he's a super rook. And obviously Laporta has earned that spot so far. And even Michael Mayer, he had one good game. People are like, oh man, like, got to start Michael Mayer. But Trey McBride is year 2, potentially with a better quarterback. And like, he looks good out there. It's just his quarterback sucks.
He was one of the best tight ends in last year's draft class, and he got drafted by a team that was stuck behind somebody like Zach Ertz. To talk about what you're saying here, is 53% of the routes, and Zach Ertz, 53. Both. They ran the same amount of routes. 20 snaps, 20 routes, both of them. But McBride had 18% of the team's targets. Ertz had 12. Why? Like you talk about, you watch that game. One can still get open.
Yeah,
and that's McBride.
Ertz runs with cement boots on.
He's sleeping with the fishes?
He might be here pretty soon, unless Dallas Goedert gets hurt and the Eagles trade for him back.
I'm looking down the list to see if there's any flyers.
The flyers this week I would take would be like, if Everett's out, play Parham. He might catch 3 touchdowns against the Bears.
You love Parham.
He loves touchdowns. He loves touchdowns.
That is true.
He has a Mark Bo Richter reception to touchdown rate.
Where did you pull that one from?
I was the first year I played fantasy. Mark Bo Richter had 11 catches and 10 touchdowns or something crazy.
I was gonna say that's one you have tucked away, because you don't just pull out a Bo Richter off the top. Are you googling it?
Mark Bo Richter 2002. I think that was the season. Let's see here. We'll pull up.
Wait, you weren't playing until 2002?
I think 2002. That was my 10th grade year. I think that's when I first started playing. Let's see.
I forgot you.
2002. Yeah, he had 20 receptions that year and 8 touchdowns.
8 touchdowns.
Never scored a touchdown again.
My god.
He played. I remember him very vividly because he played in the CFL before he played for the Chiefs. I think he was like the best receiver in the CFL, and then he ended up going down and playing for the Chiefs and only caught touchdowns.
That's the one for, what was the one?
Yeah, what's a game called?
Name? Oh, you're talking about Tecmo Bowl?
No, that game that everyone was playing, like with the squares, you had to fill in the player. Totally forget what it's called.
Oh, isn't it just squares?
Is that what it's called? I don't know. It'd be like Saints and someone, and you have to like line the players.
I was
up.
trying to think of like Richard Rodgers, the year that he did that with the Packers, where it was
yeah.
like 30 catches and 8 touchdowns.
Jeff Janis was another one too.
Oh God, the greatest wide receiver in fantasy history for everybody on Twitter back at that time.
I mean, he did go on Davis's podcast. That was nice. Quarterback rankings for the week. I have Ryan Tannehill out and Justin Fields as out as of right now. We'll see how the rest of the week.
We got that while we're doing the show.
What?
Bajan's going to start again.
Oh, Bagnet. Bajan, as I like to call him. I wish he was French. He could be, hey, everyone's calling him Old Teabag, which I think is very funny.
This is like college humor, though. That's a layup, though.
I know. I just find it fun. But I do.
Okay.
It's not my nickname, but I do really appreciate Old Teabag. He's not bad.
I just figured you were better than that, like, because you're more inventive. You don't like the easy ones usually.
I usually don't. But that one just made me chuckle.
Okay.
But
I just envisioned back when I was playing like Halo 2 and just did like that motion of getting teabagged, which I did a lot because I sucked at Halo.
Hurts, I have at number 1, although I do want to monitor what his injury is going to be because, I had bet on his over rushing yards, and once he came out in a knee brace, I was like, well, he's probably not going to get to 50 rushing yards at this point. But I still have him at number 1. It's a great matchup this week. I have Lamar at number 2, Mahomes, Herbert, Allen. That's the top 5. I got the Goof on Monday night. He's number 6 back at home against the Raiders. CJ Stroud at number 7, Tua, Purdy, Burrow. That's the top 10. And I'm going to do it this week. I'm going to play Ritter. Ritter, 11 in the rankings. It's a great matchup. I did this with Sam Howell last week, and he completely failed me. But I'll do it with Ritter this week. Dak, Lawrence, Stafford, Cousins, Bajan, Malik Willis, Gardner Minshew, Kenny Pickett. Now, here's the fun part. Basically, the bottom 10 quarterbacks in football have like the 10 worst matchups this week. It's bizarre.
Really?
Yeah, like just go and think like who like are the worst like week to week type. I guess Geno has kind of fallen down into that trap, and he plays Cleveland this week. You have Sam Howell taking on Philly. Deshaun Watson, I'm just not playing. But
well, that's why I didn't think about that because Sam Howell is actually a top 15 quarterback, so that's why.
I don't know about that.
He is. He's top 15 on the year in points per
game.
In points per game.
I thought you meant like in general.
Oh, okay. You were talking in general. Okay, yeah. See, that we came from different angles on that.
Yes.
I was gonna say,
fantasy-wise, he's been good.
Yeah, and your boy Bagnet is facing the Chargers, which is actually a good matchup.
Yeah, that's why I have Bajan at 16.
Yeah,
I have him up there, just like Willis against Atlanta. I think that's actually a nice spot for him. Maybe he'll never.
See, the problem with Philly is they're actually susceptible to the pass, but the problem is
will Sam Howell have
in the backfield?
Yeah. Will Sam Howell ever be able to stand upright to throw the ball?
He's gonna hike the bull, and there's gonna be dudes in his face like instantaneously.
Yeah, it's a tough.
Like old NFL blitz. You just kind of like start tackling everybody immediately, just hitting the tackle burst button.
Yeah, so essentially, you're going to start who you're going to start. If you're going to take a flyer on anyone this week, according to Pat Mayo, you want to take Desmond Ritter. Or Bajan is who I would go with. Those two guys amongst the other like relative starters that you would normally have. If you have to mix two in, those would be the two I would go with.
I could take a flyer on Bryce Young.
Yeah, but
I play him over Mac and Garoppolo and Jordan Love at this point.
Listen, my guy Bryce Young won me $10K 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to besmirch Bryce Young, but he's not good.
I'd still play him over the names I mentioned.
All right, I'll move it. You know what? That'll be the Jake quarterback move up of the week. Would you play Jimmy G or Bryce Young?
Bryce Young. I'd play him over Jordan Love right now. Jordan Love stinks outside of week 1.
Hey,
dude, we talked about it on the show.
Hold on. Okay, Paul, you had something to say about Bryce Young potentially?
No, I wanted you to change the spelling of Bagnet because it's giving me anxiety.
Yes. To Bagent.
Oh, there we go. Sorry
Perfect.
about that.
Thank you.
It's funny that the system doesn't even pick that up as a misspelling. Jordan Love is so talented. He can bank shot touchdown passes. You can't do that, Jake. No one can do that except for Jordan Love.
I can't even throw a touchdown pass. Jordan Love, we talked about earlier, outside of week 1, he's been terrible. The only thing that skewed it, and we talked about
rushing
it,
touchdowns.
was that his touchdown rate.
Yeah,
it was in the rushing touchdowns, but his touchdown passing rate was also off the charts. It was back with Matt Ryan, year 2016 rate. But if you watch him, he's been terrible as a passer. His 6 yards per reception. Like, we're talking, this dude is like Russell Wilson throwing downfield. So all that being said, yes, the rushing potential and no Christian Watson, so maybe that skews it back up a little bit, maybe because he take one more option at this. But I'm done with Jordan Love. I'd play Bryce Young over him. This is my entire point.
Okay, I'll put Bryce Young at 21. I'll move Jordan Love back to number 24. I will still play Jordan Love over Zach Wilson.
Okay, would you still play Derek Carr?
Yeah.
He's been miserable.
I know. Yeah,
well,
hold on. He's been miserable, but he keeps throwing for like 300 yards a game.
Because he throws 75 times.
Well, that's good. I mean, I don't care if he real life sucks.
I wasn't making the argument for Bryce Young. I was just like, I was actually with you in this, in the fact of like, you kind of do have him at 20? Question mark? Maybe?
Yeah, like I wouldn't feel good if I had to play Derek Carr, but at least I know he's going to sling it. Either on a check down or he's either going to check it down or throw real deep. That's it.
What does Kamara have the most targets again? He had 14 targets last week again.
Well, I did see that because he started in week 4. I mean, if I'm going to victory lap anything, it was just draft Alvin Kamara and wait with Derek Carr because this is going to pay off bigly. And it is. My team is like the worst in my keeper league, and no one wanted Kamara. I was like, well, I'll just draft him as a trade piece because I'm tanking this year. And now I'm in like second place. It's great because he keeps carrying my team every week.
I have him in flex. I took him in like the 5th or 6th round.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I was with you on the Kamara.
So the only bad game that he had was that Patriots game when they were like, hey, we're just going to make sure that Kamara doesn't catch a pass. That's the one thing that we're going to try to do, and they absolutely blew out. The Patriots got absolutely waxed because Mac Jones kept throwing pick sixes in that game. But with Kamara, I think that if he had played all 17 games, like his pace with receptions per game would have him breaking the all-time reception mark for any player.
That would shock me. What does he have through the games?
30.
3 games?
30 through 3 games.
30? Yeah.
That's good.
That's ridiculous.
It's free points right there. Then you don't have to be concerned that Taysom Hill steals his rushing touchdowns.
And his he's actually not even stealing. He's getting all those receptions. He's not even stealing them from Kamara.
It's true. Defenses, before we get out of here, I got the Jets ranked at number 1 against the Giants this week. Buffalo at number 2, and then Philly at number 3. Cleveland against Geno Picks, and we've seen every time that you pressure Geno. Do you have the pressure rate stats up by chance?
I could get them, by the way, because I was too busy looking. He actually has 35 receptions, just so you know.
Through 3 or 4 games. 4 games now, right?
4 games.
Yeah.
4 games.
That's a lot of receptions.
So teams, defense. You want the pressure rate, allowed or pressure rate?
No, I just want Geno's stats under pressure. Because I feel like they've been terrible.
Oh, I could definitely find that. Let me go to the quarterback page, and I can find that for you real quick.
All right, so I'll do the ranking.
Quick,
I'll do the rankings of the defenses, and you find that number. Jets, Bills on Thursday night. Eagles, Browns, Baltimore against Arizona. Dallas, Seattle against Cleveland. Kansas City, Atlanta, and the Colts at number 10. After that, you got San Francisco against Cincinnati. The Lions, you could probably rank the Lions a little bit higher now that I think about it. I'm going to bump them up Monday night against the Raiders. Put them in at number 7, just a spot ahead of Seattle. The Chargers, the Saints, the Steelers, the Jags, Texans, Tampa, all these other teams. There's enough pickups in here that you can probably get away with it. But unless there's a defense that you really wanted to big up as a sleeper defense, I'm pretty good with these defense rankings, I think.
Yeah. I don't have any problems with it, and I did pull it up. So he is 8th, but that's also this is with all quarterbacks at least 25 attempts. So this includes Thompson Robinson and Andy Dalton in this list, but he's being pressured 40% of the time.
Yeah, and like he looks fine when he has a clean pocket. In the moment that he gets pressured, like we saw it at the end of the Cincinnati game, we even saw it at points against the Cardinals. Like the Cardinals aren't even good at getting pressure, and when they were getting pressure on Geno, we just made terrible decisions.
He's been making a lot. Well, for comparison, again, go back to it. Russell Wilson with the Jordan Love, Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, kind of all looking similar. Russell Wilson's 39.7 right behind him. Highest is still Justin Fields at 40. Almost 50% of the time when he dropped back, he was getting pressured. Where's Bagent? How is he, like, is he just, what's it? Bagent's only being pressured 32% of the time when Fields was almost 50?
So here's the difference, and I noticed this watching the game. Because he's not asked to do anything, like there was one play in particular, like he just rolled out to the right and like nothing was there. He just threw the ball away, just immediately threw it away. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to try to run for this. Someone's going to kill me. I'm not going to force it into the end zone to DJ Moore because he's triple covered. He looked at the situation. It was like second down. He's like, nope, just toss the ball away. They have geared this offense towards him. Like Fields will run, like if it was Fields would have ran. He probably would have got positive yardage on it potentially, or he may have fumbled, or he may have tried to force a pass. Like Fields tries to do so much because he's so talented. Bagent is just out there being like, you know what? I'm just trying not to fuck up. And it's kind of effective.
It's kind of working. You want a crazy stat that 3 of the bottom 4 teams getting pressure, or players getting are all on the same team. The bottom 4 and getting pressured: Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo, with Tua sandwiched in there.
So the Raiders' offensive line is good?
At pass blocking, they're not so good at run blocking. But that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's crazy that all 3 of them are down there. Tua is for all intents and purposes, true quarterbacks. Tua is 1, Garoppolo 2, Burrow 3, just as a reference point.
It's funny that Burrow is being held upright so much. Because after all the talk about their offensive line, like, oh no, it's piss poor, but apparently it's all right now.
Yeah. And conversely, the Giants were supposed to have a better when they got 18,000 people hurt, and Tyrod Taylor and Daniel Jones are both inside the top 5.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough scene. I think 4 of their 5 starters are out. Andrew Thomas is coming back.
And they even lost backups.
Yeah, Andrew,
but it doesn't even matter at this point.
it's true. The Listeners League is now available DraftKings-wise. Down in the description, I just got sent the link, so $15 to play, 3 max entry, no rake. It is the best tournament on DraftKings. If you only want to spend $15 or $45 every single week, this is where you should play that money because there is no rake. So more money is available to everyone, and a min cash is double your money, unlike most tournaments on DraftKings. Jake, at AllInKid on Twitter and theathletic.com. Who's your number 1 waiver wire pickup this week? Is it DeMarcado again?
No, because I'm just going to stick to wide receivers. It's going to be the ones that. Why do I keep saying the same damn thing every week? Josh Palmer and Josh Downs. Go pick up the Joshes and stop screwing. How are they both not 60% rostered? This is absurd.
I'd rather have Josh Downs.
I think if you're looking for the higher ceiling.
I just think week to week.
I don't know. Why do people not like Josh Palmer? He just goes out there and produces.
Yeah, I feel like eventually he's going to get passed by Quentin Johnson. Maybe Quentin Johnson sucks, but
Quentin Johnson can't even get past, what's his face? Oh, I was just about to say his name. Not Demario Douglas, the other one.
Davis.
Thank you.
That guy.
Yes. He can't even get past him.
It's true. But we went through this last year when Mike Williams went down that Josh Palmer seemed to be the better fill-in for Keenan Allen than he did for Mike Williams, and maybe they've adjusted to that on the fly.
No, it's the other way.
No, it was,
Palmer was Mike Williams. DeAndre Carter was Keenan Allen because DeAndre Carter plays the slot.
oh, yeah, that's right. So I've had that backwards for weeks. What an idiot I am. Dummy. Look at me.
This is why we do the show. We can
Idiot.
correct each other on stupid things.
See, that's really nice. See, that's why you're here. That's why we continue to do the show. So hopefully it helped you out. We talked through each of the positions. You can find all of the updated ranks. They get updated every single day at DK Network, or they're just down in the description. You can sub to the newsletter and get them sent directly to you as well. That injury report in the newsletter does get updated in real time. You can find that down in the description. Just go back to it. So when there are new injuries, they get added to the list. And the expectation of what's going to happen this week. Are they expected in, expected out, based on reports to help you set your fantasy lineups. All right. Smash the like while you're here. Thank you all for watching. I am Pat Mayo, and I will see you next time.
Mayo experience. Experience.